Good afternoon, everyone. It's an immense pleasure to welcome you all for the today's webinar session. So I'm Mahesh, I'm the host for the today's webinar by Increasol. I will be assisting you in case you find any difficulties during this session. Also, you can keep posting your queries in the chat, which will be discussed in the last 15 minutes of our Q&A session. As a speaker, today I have Mr. Suresh Kolla, the sales and distribution consultant. So, Suresh,
Yeah, Mahesh.
I'll hand the mic to you. You can take the session forward.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. Let me start the presentation now. Sure. Yeah. I hope everybody is able to see my presentation. I guess.
Yeah, your screen is
Uh,
visible.
eh, so Mahesh, are you able to see right now?
Yeah. We are
Okay.
able to see your screen.
Yeah.
You can start.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So as per the session, so understand what is flexible. Okay, so what is the how it works in the with respect to the SD module for various business process? So you would be able to know about these things. Okay, so let us go through the agenda of it. Okay, so as part of the session, you would be able to understand what is flexible workflow, the benefits of the flexible workflow, how to start with the flexible workflow, and one business process example. And so there's an app called Manage Teams and Responsibilities, Manage Sales Document Workflow, which is one of the other Fairy applications, and My Inbox Fairy application. Okay, later we have a Q&A session. Okay. So the flexible workflow allows you to define an approval process for a documents according to your requirements. Okay. So it has been introduced in the S4HANA system. Okay. So which is being used, so which is using the existing business workflow functionality with some enhancements of it. Okay. So by using the flexible workflow, so you can simplify your configuration. Okay. So the sales document workflow functionality is available. Okay. From the 1809. So this is for the sales document workflow functionality. So the flexible workflow is already available in the earlier versions also, but it is available for the sales document workflow only from the version 1809. Okay, so it can be enabled with the three Fiori applications, which you can see in the below screenshot. Okay, so one is manage teams and responsibilities. The second one is manage sales document workflows and my inbox. Okay, so along with that, we also have to implement only, and we have to do some SAP customization. Okay, so we'll go through those by one. Okay, so it's not about the sales document when it comes to the flexible workflow, but also supports the different scenarios in the SAP system. So when it comes to the other scenarios like general journal entries, purchase requisitions, purchase orders, request for quotation, service entry sheet, scheduling agreement, preliminary billing document, legal transaction, condition contract, settlement documents, marketing campaign, marketing plan, sales credit memo request, sales orders, sales quotation, etc. Okay, so these are the scenarios on which you can make use of the flexible workflow. Okay, so now, so what is the difference? Okay, so as you know that there is a classical workflow, and now when it comes to the S4HANA, we have flexible workflow, right? So what is the difference between these two? Okay. So classical workflow and flexible workflow, you can have a different functionalities here on the screen. Like when it comes to the transaction point of view, so the classical workflow can be built in the transaction code SWDD. Okay, so in flexible workflow, it will be under SWDD underscore scenario. Okay, the purpose of it is in the classical workflow. These are the classical workflows built using the workflow builder and developed by SAP. Okay, so they are usually referred to as a simply workflows. Okay, but when it comes to the flexible workflow, it is just a building block where the end user, where the client users can configure it and maintain the flexible workflow as per their business requirement. Okay, the resulting workflow can be configured by the process expert using the managed workflow app. Okay, so these apps will be discussed in the later. Okay, yeah, and the other one is, so like efforts. Okay, when it comes to the efforts point of view, so when it comes to the classical workflow, so everything starting from the start point to end point, so you have to develop everything whatever that is required by the customer. So that has to be developed and have to be provided to the customer. But when it comes to the flexible workflow, so the development effort is less as compared to the classical workflow, because it is a ready made. Okay, it is just a build block, right? So there you can just activate it and you can use it as per the requirement. Okay, so custom development. So when it comes to the development, maybe the standardized functionality may not be suitable for all the businesses. However, there is a functionality where you can adapt as per your business requirement. Okay, so which is as part of the custom development. So that is available in both classical workflow as well as in the flexible workflow. And conditional triggering. Okay, maybe there would be many scenarios where there would be different conditions to trigger the workflow scenarios. Like example, maybe the order value, you have to set a order value as a condition, so for which you have to write the code in the classical workflow. So whereas in the flexible workflow, there is no coding required, as it is a precondition to manage triggering as a steps. Okay, so that you can see in the down the line, so where you can have the demonstration of the Fairy application. Okay. So then email templates. So no much support in the classical workflow. So whereas in the flexible workflow, there are pre-delivered email templates can be reused. Okay. If at all you want to enhance them further, you can also enhance it for very well. Okay. When it comes to this technology point of view, so this can be a BO based and class based. But the flexible workflow will be on BO based, class based, as well as the CDS based. Okay. So then what are the benefits of the flexible? As I mentioned, minimal technical development. So it is just a business building block where you just activate and you can run through it, right? The flexible workflow. So whereas in the classical workflow, so starting from the starting point to ending point, you have to develop each and every scenario that is required as per the business requirement. But for the flexible workflow, you just activate it, you can configure it, and you can activate it. So system will trigger it as per the business requirement. So based upon the Fury applications that you activated, right? So that's why there's a minimal technical development, and they reduce the cost. So there's no more what I can say is there is a less chances of reaching out to the technical consultant as and when there's a functionality is deviating. Okay, so in that case, so there will be obviously a cost reduction, right? So by using the flexible workflow and ability to access in mobile, tablet, and desktop. So if it is a classical workflow, there's no much opportunity for you to use it in the mobile or tablet, right? So since it is on the Fairy application, the approval mechanism can be run on the mobile platform, tablet, and desktop. You can directly access the Fairy application in your mobile, and you can approve the required transactions. Easy to add change workflow. So as I mentioned here, so there's no technical development, right? So the whatever the change or add can be managed using the Fairy application. Just add or change functionality in that. So as I mentioned, so there's an app called Manage Teams and Responsibilities where you define the number of team so the team members in a application. So that can be further used for the flexible workflow activations and manage sales document workflows fair app. So here, this is where you configure the flexible workflow for the sales document scenarios. So we'll just see that in down the line, right? Then the My Inbox Fairy application, where the user directly log into the Fairy application of My Inbox and he can approve or reject or revoke. Okay, so you can do that activity in the My Inbox Fairy application, right? Now, how to start with flexible workflow? So there are different settings which are mandate and optional. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, there's a picture, right? So the straight line will define mandatory step, and the dots line will be saying that it is an optional step. Okay, so the color is also for the administrator, a configuration expert, and business process specialist. Okay, so as you can see on the flow, so the each step will be defined in the next slides. Okay, we'll go through it one by one. Okay. Is one reason for approval request to set up the approval workflow for sales order. Okay, so now the SAP has given this functionality to add the approval reasons on the basis of the document category. Let's say, so for order, so there's a document category is C, and for the credit memo request, it has a different document category, and for the contract, it will be B, right? So according to that document category, so system has SAP has introduced that functionality to add this. Okay, so let's see that. Okay. So if a sales document meets the condition that are defined in the body, so here, so there is one body which is introduced by SAP in which you can set the preconditions to trigger the workflow or not to trigger the workflow. Because this is where you can write whether you just you can enable this functionality by adding any customization table like SM30 table where you can maintain or delete the activities there, or you can directly write the code in the body. So as per the requirement. This is just to trigger the flexible workflow functionality to reach out the the Fiori applications for further approval process. So in case you do not want the system to automatically create a purchase request. So as I mentioned, so if the criteria is not met, okay, if the criteria is met and the flexible workflow is required for the third party cases, let's say, or else it is an individual purchase order, let's say. So in that case, as long as it is not approved, system won't allow you to change or create the purchase request in background. So for that also you have to have the order reason that has to be adapted in the bad implementation. Okay. So in order to configure this approval request reasons, you have to go through the SPRO path like sales and distribution, basic functions, document approvals, define reasons for approval request. So this is where you have to configure the approval request reasons. As you can see on the screenshot, there's a different order reasons are there. Like one is for credit memo request, one is for domestic order, and the other one is for quotation approval. Okay, next, once you have defined the approval request reasons, you specify which documents these reasons are valid for, assigning them to one or more document categories. As I mentioned that these order approval reasons are assigned to the document categories of the sales scenarios. Okay. So as you can see on the next screenshot, right? So you have to assign this approval request reason to the document category of the business scenario, like quotation, order, credit memo. Okay. So as of now, SAP has given a flexible workflow functionality in the sales only for the quotation, order, and credit memo request. Okay, not all other functionalities. Okay. So, yep. Now activate workflow. Okay. So here, so as we mentioned that, so system is able to adapt the existing functionality which is a part of the classical workflow, right? So these are the scenarios which have to be activated as part of the flexible workflow activation. Okay, for this you have to navigate through the SAP NetWeaver, application server, business management, business workflow, flexible workflow, then you have to go to the scenario activation. Okay, here you can find the description of the each workflow. Okay, so workflow for sales order, workflow for credit memo request, and workflow for sales quotation. And so how do you, so there are the different decision keys, right? So maybe that would be for approve, reject, or request revoke. So these are the major decisions which have to be taken by the approver. Okay, maybe a sales representative it initiated one sales order for which there would be a rework is required. So in that case, the approver has to initiate the request rework in order to initiate the functionality, in order to intimate the sales representative to do his required changes in that. Or if the requirement is not met as per the sales criteria, then it has to be rejected. So that can also be done. And if it is meeting the marketing criteria, then it has to be approved. Then he can select the approve. So these are the main three decision keys which have to be adapted to the flexible the workflow functionality. Okay, so that can be configured under the given path: web platform, SAP gateway, service enablement, content, workflow settings, maintain task names, and decision options. So this is where you have to configure all this stuff. Okay. Then, so functions are assigned to the team members so that they can perform various tasks. Okay. So as I mentioned, so there are different levels of approvals. Okay, like level 1 approval, level 2 approval, level 3 approval. So that could be a that is purely dependent on the business requirement. Like maybe one business may require one or two level of approvals. The other business may require 5 to 6 approvals, right? So that the functions can be enabled as per the business requirement. As per the standard, SAP provides level 1, level 2 approvals. However, you can add as many approvals are required. You can mention it here. Okay. Then define function profiles. So this is the function profile where you have to assign this level of approvals to the relevant scenario. So as part of the session, we are discussing about the sales part, so that this screenshot is highlighted with the sales part only. So in the same way, you have to adapt these functions for the all other profiles as well. Like maybe, so as I mentioned in the initial screen, that the functionality is adapted in the purchase side, and it is for the finance side. So those profiles will be visible here, in which you can add the required level of approvals here. Next, so we have to make sure that the system is active with the workflow RFCs. Okay, as you can see on the screen, so there's a left side you can see the right marks, right? So these are the minimum bare minimum activations to be required. Okay, along with that, so as part of the flexible workflow, you are supposed to create a new SAP user, that is SAP underscore WFRT. Okay, so the SAP purely uses the this dedicated user ID for further processing. Okay, so you can see that in the this workflow screen as well. SAP has clearly mentioned that the SAP user SAP underscore WFRT must be available. So for that, you have to ask your basis system, basis consultant to create this workflow user ID for further processing. Okay. Now, so baddie, right? So this is the baddie which we are talking about. So it is SD and a underscore APM underscore set underscore approval underscore reason. So in which you have to set up the order reason, okay, the approval reason, right? So in our case, we have taken this, and if the order type equals to ZIOR, so it is a domestic order, then the approval functionality has to be triggered. Okay, for that, so this is just a basic example scenario which I have adapted here. So likewise, you have to implement this baddie, in which you have to write your preconditions to meet the flexible workflow criteria. Okay. Now, so as I mentioned, this is what the Fieri application, that is manage teams and responsibilities, is the Fieri application. Okay, so with this app, you can manage teams, responsibility definitions, and team members' functions in responsibility management. Okay, you can use responsibility definitions and members' function to define their members that are responsible for workflows. Okay, so a team member is a business user. Okay, so in this case, so whosoever is whosoever is required to participate in the workflow functionality, so they are supposed to be created as a business partner in the SAP system. They might be provided with an SAP login user ID, right? That has to be assigned with the this partner, what you call this employee partner. Later, this has to be synced with the business partner. Okay, so that is mandatory in the S4 HANA system. Whatever the master you have for the customer, the vendor, or the employee, that has to be synced to the business partner. So which is a mandatory thing in the S4 HANA. I hope you know all that. Okay, so in that case, the business partner shouldn't be, the status of the business partner shouldn't be blocked, marked for archiving, and business purpose completed. So if the business partner has these statuses, then it won't be able to, you won't be able to use that ID for flexible workflow. Okay. Now, as you can see here, so each user will be created as an employee in the SAP system. As you can see, there's a personal number which is assigned to an individual employee, for which we have assigned a system ID, that is nothing but SAP login user ID. And then we have synced this personal number to the business partner, that is 124, right? As you can see that, you can see the personal number under the identification tab. Okay, so without which you won't be able to use that particular user ID for further flexible workflow functionality. Okay, so this is the mandatory thing for running the flexible workflow functionality. So, later, so as you can see, manage teams and responsibility for your application. You have to create a workflow team. Okay, so in which you have to mention the team owners and team members. Okay, so down the line, you can see there's a functions screen, right, where I have mentioned sales document approval. Okay, so here you have to mention who is level 1 approver and who is level 2 approval. Okay, so that we can see on the screen in the live system. I'll show it to you. Okay, so let me go through this and then I'll show you on the screen itself, SAP system itself. Okay, so manage sales document workflow for your application. So with this app, you can, you know, so you can configure the required things here. Okay, like let me show you that. Okay, so this is where you set up uh, the preconditions to trigger the required approval persons. Okay, so you have just initiated the flexible workflow functionality in the body, which is written in the SAP system. Now, in the manage sales document workflow, you have to decide the preconditions. For example, if my order type is ZIOR, then the workflow team members have to be triggered. So there also you have next level precondition step, where if the net value is greater than so and so amount, then this approval has to be triggered by the approved to be approved by the level 1 approval. If it is greater than so and so amount, then it has to be triggered by the level 2 approval. So like that, you can mention the preconditions and the step per conditions. Okay, we can see that in the next screenshot. Okay, so here, if you set up the workflow with more than one approver, be aware that the several conditions can be met at the same time. So as I mentioned, so before you can, maybe you would be having different teams in the manage teams and responsibility for your application. However, you have to set a certain preconditions where to meet the exact team members to trigger and approve the flexible workflow criteria. Now, so choose the required workflow. So as I mentioned here, so as of now, SAP has enabled the flexible workflow for the sales orders, credit memo requests, as and for the sales quotations. Okay, as far as the sales scenario perspective. Okay, so here there's an option called create. So once you choose the required workflow functionality, then you have to click on create button. Okay, so once you click here, so this is the start condition. Just a moment. Okay. So as I mentioned, so this is the start condition. So if this condition is met, then it will go for the approval mechanism here. So this is the start condition. So if the sales data type is ZI over, then it will go downstairs. Okay. So here the steps. So here you have preconditions, step conditions. So level one approval is required. Okay, which is less than 20,000 of amount. Okay, then it will go for the level one approval. So that's why the in the step condition there's no any precondition here. So if the level one approval is required as and when the net value of the order is greater than 20,000, then it will go for the level 2 approval. Else, if the order value is less than 20,000, then it will go for the level 1 approval. Okay. So this is the step condition and this is the start condition. So once the start condition is met with the requirement, then it will go for the step conditions and it will send it to the appropriate approver. Okay. So we will see that on the screen in a detailed manner. Okay. So now the next activity is, so this require a set of basis activity where basis a security activity where the authorization is required for the approval functionality. Okay. So if the person is this functionality is strongly recommended for the scenario where solely approval is required. Okay. Maybe for example, as you can see on the screen, if the sales organization is 2910, so in that case the particular approval can only be able to approve that particular sales order. Okay, so that's how you can control with the on the basis of the this authorization object v_vbak_apm, which is a new authorization object in the S4HANA. Okay, so workflow authorizations. A user must have authorization for below things. So as I mentioned, so there are different users are involved in this. One is sales representative, the another one is approver, and the third one is workflow user ID. So these three must have the required authorization objects, and that has to be assigned for their activities. Okay. So as you can see, the user must have the authorizations like v_vbak_880 and the v_vbak_vko and v_vbak_apm. So these two are existing authorization objects. However, you also have to provide the additional authorization object, that is v_vbak_apm. This is reserved for the users. Okay. And the workflow user should have the authorizations, this one. Okay, b_bupa_grp, b_bupa_rlt, and b_bup_pcpt, and the other one is rsmtm. So this is a new authorization objects which is part of the managed teams and responsibilities. Okay, so because in order to run this functionality, this workflow user ID has to have this authorization object as well. Now, so business process example. Let's take one business scenario. So for demonstration purpose, I've just taken one simple business scenario. So that illustrates the purpose of the flexible workflow and how it exactly works in the SAP. Okay. So let's say an internal sales representative creates a sales document that requires the approval of a sales manager. Okay. So for example, if the level one approval is needed, if the net value of the order is less than or equal to 20,000, and the level 2 approval is needed if the net value of the order is greater than the 20,000. Okay. So in that case, we have to activate these conditions here. Like, as you can see, there's a pictorial diagram for the approval process. Let's say, so create or update the sales document. Then is this document is relevant for approval? So this check is done in the body, right? So if it is yes, then it will go and update the sales document. Okay. So like that, and yes, if it is S, trigger the workflow and which action. Okay, if it is release or rework or reject. So these are the activities to be triggered here. Okay. So is this rework required? Then it will go this way and it will update the create sales order, update sales order. Whatever the required changes have to be done, then the user go and make the required changes and he'll send it back to the approver. Okay. So in the same way, if it is released, then action will go release and it will update the sales document that saying that it is approved. Okay. Then this is the workflow functionalities end here. If it is reject, then it will also workflow will be end as if the saying that the sales document is rejected. Okay, so these are the things here. And create sales order. Okay, so here now the sales representative logs into the SAP system and he is trying to create a sales order. So as soon as he creates a sales order, then system define if the baddie implementation with the preconditions are satisfied, then it will set up a approval status here. So as you can see on the screen, so there's a approval status in approval, and the reason is domestic order approval. So which has been implemented in the baddie. So based upon that, system has set up this approval status there. Okay. Now, so as soon as this is created, right? Let me show you that. Now, okay. So has received the order for the approval in his my inbox query application, as the order has the value below 20,000. You can see, right, there's a net value which is highlighted in this. So the net value of the order is 5,000. So because of that, the level 1 approval has received this order for approval. So if it is more than 20,000, it will definitely hit the level 2 approval. Okay, so this is as part of the my inbox query application. Okay, so if something is needed. So as soon as the sales order is approved by the person, so as you can see, there are different actions right on the screen. One is approve, reject, and request rework. Okay, if it is approved, the status of the order will be changed to released. Okay, if it is rework, then the status will be changed to requested to be rework. And if it is rejected, then the status will be set to rejected. So these are the activities which have been adapted in the SAP system itself, and you can find these fields in the VBAK table. Okay, there are fields like approval status and what is the category there. So you can see these details in the S4HANA system, and the table will be VBAK. There you can see the approval status under it. Okay. Yeah. So if at all you want to monitor the workflow process in the SAP system, you can run the T code SWIA, so which is an existing transaction which is available in the ECC as well as in the S4HANA system. Okay. You just have to enter the task name in the input selection criteria, then execute it. So as you can see on the screen, you will find the list like this. Here, select the required workflow item, then click on the notes button. Then the next screen will be appear with the each activity. Like you can see there's a workflow for sales order, then scenario for sales order approval, so release of sales order. So like this, so the steps will be visible as soon as you click on the this note icon. Okay, so here the internal sales representative can withdraw. So maybe there are certain situations where the user might have saved the sales order with inappropriate information, where he wants the system, where he wants to edit the sales order again. Maybe he is missing with the discount, or he might be missing with adding the additional components there, or he might be entered miss sales price. So in that case, he wants to withdraw approval request and he wants to make the modifications. So in that case, so as long as he do not withdraw the approval request, he won't be able to go to the change mode of the sales order. So because it is sent for approval for the higher authorities, right? So in that case, if the user wants to edit it back, then he has to withdraw from the approval request. Then he make the required changes. Then he'll save the sales order again. So as soon as he saves it again, then it will go to the required approval based upon the functionality we made it. Okay, so for that, so in the display sales order, then you have to go to the edit sales order, then additional function. There you will find the option called withdraw approval request. Okay, now we can see this is my inbox. Okay, so my inbox is a Fairy application where you can see all the notification which have been triggered from the different areas. Like maybe it would be from the procurement, maybe it would be from manufacturing, maybe it would be from the sales, etc. So all those will be available in the my inbox Fairy application, where you can go through it and you can proceed with your necessary activities. So as you can see, these are the bare minimum functionalities which are there in the my inbox application. So you can see there, like as I mentioned earlier, so release, reject, rework, these are there. and you can also see the notification. Maybe so the level 1 approval is done and the level 2 is there. Okay, in that case you would be able to see the notification that has been mentioned by the level 1 approval under the notification, right? So there you can read that and you can proceed accordingly. Okay, so if at all you want to run mass processing of the sales account, maybe you are feeling that all the documents which are not required for go through it and approve it, so you can directly act it. You can by clicking on this icon, you can select multiple selections and then you can perform mass release options here, so that all the orders will be approved in a sequence, okay, in single click. So like that, so I don't want to explain all this stuff because you are really will know about it, like release, rework, and reject. Okay. So example, uh, for example, any the approver might be mentioned a note to the sales representative saying that the amount is too high, please make a rework. So that information can be seen by clicking on the notification box here. So this is what a text message where you can see the information which is mentioned by the level 1 or level of approvals. Okay, so now let me show you on the SAP system now. Okay, so let me stop sharing this or else. Yep. Yeah, Mahesh, is my screen visible?
Yeah, Suresh, your screen is visible.
Okay, yeah. Mm, fine. Let me show you the SAP system as well. Yeah. So let me stop and share again. Okay. So let me show you my SAP system now. Okay. So let me let me come from the bad implement, the config part. Okay. So let me show you what is to be done in the SAP system. Okay. If you go to the SPRO transaction, right, there you have to create. So what is that? So this is where you find the document approval. So you have to define the approval reasons here. Then you need to assign it under this section. Okay. So once it is assigned, okay, let me show you the bad implementation as well. This is the bad in which you have to define the approval reason setup. Yeah, here So this is where you have to write the conditions to meet your business requirement. Only then you set up the approval reason for the particular sales document type. Okay. So likewise, you have to, this is just a basic precondition that I have mentioned here. You can mention different information. You have lot of information here, like from the sales document, the header data, item data, partner data, etc. Okay. You can make use of these data and you can build up your business logic as per the requirement. Okay. So then let me show you the Fieri application. Okay. So this is the app in which you have to set up the teams. Okay. So there's a create button. So as I mentioned in the screenshot, right? So this is the create button where you have to create a new workflow, a new team as per your business requirement. Okay. So click here. So I've just already created it for our demonstration purpose. So here you have to mention the description of the teams. Okay. Then you have to mention the team owners here. So who are the team owners and the team members. So this is where you have to set up. So who is the level 2 approver and who is the level 1 approval. Okay. So likewise, you have to define it as per the team members availability and the level of approval as per the business requirement. Okay. So once it is set up, then we have to go to the next app. So this is manage teams and responsibilities. If you go to the manage sales document workflow, this is the second app in which you have to set up the workflow conditions. Okay, so workflow for sales order. So here, so this is where you find an option here, like this is for whether you want to create for a sales order or for credit memo or for quotation. Select it and then click on create button here. Then you will be able to create it. Okay, so for time being, let me show you the created one. So here you have to mention the workflow name. Okay, so like as I mentioned, workflow for sales order, you can mention the validity periods. And here I've just mentioned a start condition. If the base criteria, base condition is met, then it will go for the next level of approval here. So as far as my requirement is concerned, then it is my sales order type, which is JEDI. And then if the net value of the order is greater than 20,000, then it will go for the level 2 approval. If it is less than or equal to 20,000, it will go for the level 1 approval. Okay. So this is what you have to set up. So these step conditions can also be done in the further navigation. So here you can see, so you have to name it. Okay, so sales document approval level 1. Then what is the step condition here? So for the first level, I haven't mentioned any precondition because so my condition only on the 20,000, right? Which is greater than 20,000, then it will go for the level 2 approval. Else it has to go to the level 1 approval only. Okay, so for the level 2, yeah, for the level 2, I've just mentioned a precondition here. Okay, like step condition where the net value is greater than 20,000 INR, Indian rupees. Then it has to go to the next level approval. So this is what you can mention, and the actions can also be mentioned here. So required action, what is the required action? Whether you want to make it rework or whether you want to block it. Okay. And how do you know what is the next action? What is the, so here this is where you can mention the restart workflow, right? So this is how you have to set up workflow. Okay, then you have to activate it. Whether you want to activate or deactivate, there are different options here, which you have to explore further. Okay, so once you set up the manage teams and responsibilities and the manage workflows, and in the SAP system, there's a configuration and the bad implementation. So these are the prerequisites which have to be realized in the SAP system. Only then you would be able to trigger the sales order workflow functionality. Okay, let me run through one this scenario here. Let me create a sales order. SAP screen is visible, right, Mahesh?
Right.
So I'm just mentioning this information here. I'm, I'm going to create a sales order. Okay. So the net value of the order is 5,000. Now it is supposed to go to the level 1 approval. Okay. So I'm saving it. Okay. Sales order is saved. The status of the sales order is so in approval. Okay. So the reason is domestic approval, which has been managed in the body, right? So that will be visible under the approval status. If at all you want to see this information, you just go to the table level. So here you'll find this information here. So these are the three fields. Okay, so what is the status of it? A. A stands for in approval, release, rejected to be revoked. So these are the status can set up using the free applications. Okay, what is the reason and what is the rejection reason? If at all you want to reject it, then there would be a dedicated rejection ID which you have to manage it. Okay, so likewise you have to do this activity, right? So once it is created, right? If the user wants to make the required changes, maybe he overlooked the order and he created something else. Okay, he wants to make the required changes. Here, edit additional functions. If you do not do it, if you click on change button, system throws an error. Okay, sales document is an approval, no changes are allowed. So in that case, the user has to go to edit additional functions, then it will go to the withdraw approval request. Then the approval request for the sales was withdrawn. Now, so he will be able to edit and make the required changes, and he can make the required changes and he can save it again. Still, my net value is 10,000 only. Let me save it. Now let me go to the approval status. Now it is again in the in approval status, right? Let me log into the user, the level 1 approval user. This is the my inbox fair application. Uh, yeah. So this will be, the action has to be triggered by the approver. Okay, that will be visible under my inbox item. So, however, so actually we are running out of time. So let us quickly get into the Q&A session. Okay, so let me end up here. So this is where you have to configure and the functional has to run through. Okay, let me go to the Q&A session now.
Yeah, Suresh. So, Suresh, we have few questions actually.
Mhm.
So, can the flexible workflow for sales order to be changed after deployment?
Yeah, so we can change it very well. So as we have seen that it is a freely configurable functionality which has to be managed in the workflow of your application. So whether you want to add a new condition or you want to delete the existing workflow structure, you delete it and add it, that will work. Yeah.
Okay. If we have another question, is the flexible workflow for sales order available in all version of S4HANA?
Yeah, it is from the 1809. It is available, especially for the sales workflow. And however, there are other flexible workflows which are available for the earlier versions as well. Not in the sales module, but in the other modules. Yeah.
And the other question is, who are needed to set up the flexible workflow?
Yeah. Okay. So there are different persons are needed. Like this is for the initial requirement. Like in order to implement the baddie, so there's a technical person, ABAPer is needed. Then one basis consultant to set up the workflow authorizations for the workflow user ID and the sales representative and the approvals. And the other one is like functional consultant. Later, once this initial setup is complete, then the business process expertise can log into the Fiori application based upon the inputs given by the functional consultant. He can do it on his own. Okay, this is purely given to the business process specialist. He can manage teams and responsibilities as well as manage sales document workflows. So these are the person required for it.
Okay. So there's another question. Can we add more levels of approval as per the business plan?
Yes, we can have it, and there you can set up whether you want to set whether only one person is required to be approved or any one of the members have to approve. So this functionality is there and that can be managed in the manage sales document workflows. Yeah.
Okay. So there's another question. What is the difference between the start condition and the step condition in the manage workflow Fiori app?
Yeah, so this is the high level. If you say the start condition is the high level condition, so upon meeting this requirement, then it will go for the approval mechanism where you have a step condition. Let's say if the scenario is domestic order, then it has to go for the next approval step conditions. Where you just mentioned if the order is domestic order, then it will go for the approval. Which approval is required? Then it will go for the step condition. So in step condition, you will just mention whether it is a net value or any sales department or sales office or any particular customer. So based upon that, you can set which level of approval is required. So that is the real difference between these two. Any other
Oh,
questions, Mahesh?
oh, there's another question coming up. Can we have multiple approvals for the same level approval?
Can we have multiple levels of approval? Yes, we can. So let's say, so once the start condition is met, then you have to mention a step condition, whether the value is greater than so and so. As I've just mentioned it there, okay, if the value is 10,000, then the level 1 approval is needed. And if it is level 2, then if it is 20,000, it has to go to the level 2. So likewise, you can add a number of approval as per the requirement. The level 1 is triggered, then it will go, the workflow is initiated to the next level of approval. Once it is approved, then it will go to the next level of approval. So likewise, you can mention a chain, so in which you can define the step conditions, then it will act accordingly. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So these are the questions, Suresh. We'll just for a few
Yeah.
seconds actually, we'll wait for any questions routing up.
Yeah, sure then. Yeah, no issue.
So I think we are good to go, Suresh. We are running out of time.
ఒకసారి వెళ్ళిన అక్కడికి. Yeah, okay, Mahesh. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Hope we
Thanks for
enjoyed
the
the session
session.
and must have taken some input takeaways. Our next webinar details will be circulated along with the schedule and the registration detail by our event team. Thank you. Thank you all.